Um, Hello, my name is Campo. I'm project lead of the Eclipse IDE project. But this is a talk about OSGi, so it's not a IDE, so you only need to know OSGi to understand the content of this talk. This is a talk about why is OSGi dynamic, or why is it so dynamic? Who likes the dynamic aspect of OSGi? Okay, who thinks it's maybe in some aspects a little too dynamic sometimes? Oh, okay. So there are my enemies and my friends. Okay, so I'm going to talk about first a little bit about OSGi, about some key aspects. I cannot possibly, cover everything of OSGi. I'm going to talk about lifecycle things, services and extensions. I'm going to also include extensions. Extensions are something that Equinox brought, which are not, strictly speaking, or in any way part of the OSGi specification, but it's something we use every day. And I'm going to use some samples. And then I'm going to show how I think, how it works for me, the dynamic of OSGi. So OSGi has a definition of what is part of OSGi. OSGi has this great thing of modularity, of components, of services. It has this way of exporting certain APIs and hide implementations. It has this concept of bundles and plugins. And it has one of the strong parts, I think, is OSGi services, which allows you to have implementations independent of the people who use them. It's hidden where the implementation is. So this is sort of a very simple picture as I see it. You have bundles, services, and extensions. They have a life cycle. So bundles can be started. They can have different states. They can be started. They can be stopped. And you can add runtime, uninstall them, and install new versions. So you can upgrade a version if you want at runtime. Services are shown here as a separate entity, but actually they are within one bundle. But services can also be independent of the life cycle of a bundle, be started and stopped at runtime. And there are extensions. They don't get started or stopped, but they get uninstalled when you uninstall a bundle. So here is this is what it looks like in real life then. You have a bundle, it contains a service. They are in an extension. In this case, they are started. The extension is installed. If you can stop a service, it doesn't affect the life cycle of the bundle, and you can start again. So you can very dynamically react to your environment, to things that are happening around. So if you need, for example, you go offline, you can stop a service because a certain thing on the server isn't there anymore. And if you're back online, you can start again. If you stop a bundle, that means also the services in this bundle get stopped. So here's extensions. Extensions are a little different. Okay, no, extensions are different because if you uninstall a bundle, also the extensions got uninstalled. Here is a picture about how certain different bundles work together. If you want to consume a service in a second bundle, so in this case, a left bundle publishes a service. We have this common bundle on top that defines the interface. The service has a bundle, as a service, the bundle on the left has a service, and on the right side, I have a component that wants to use this service. So the only dependency they have is to this common bundle. They don't know directly which service is implementing this, but they get through the OSGi service registries, they get a reference to this service. If you stop the bundle, what happens to the service reference? The service reference is a Java reference. What happens to it? What happens is you still have it, but the bundle is stopped. So that is a complexity you have to deal with. That you can listen to what the bundle, whether it goes down or up, or you can see that a service is stopped. But if you don't do that, if you just look at the reference of the Java instance, you can still use it, and you can have errors, any kind of errors, if you don't check if the service is still running. So that's, I think, one of the problems there. The same is for extensions. Extensions work that you have an extension point, and through some mechanism, you can create a executable, again, a Java object from that extension. And if the bundle gets stopped, or then you still have this reference, and you can still use that Java object, but maybe the environment in which the thing is created does not exist anymore, so you might fail there.
Question?
Yeah, sure.
Extensions means the Equinox extensions.
Yes, yes, yes. It means the Equinox extensions, yeah. So I said at the beginning, they are not strictly part of OSGi. They are part of Equinox, but I just sort of handled them in the same context because I think people use both of them. They use extensions and services, and they are affected by the life cycle of the bundles. Okay, and if you uninstall the bundle, still you can hold on to this Java reference if you're not careful. Because I think a lot of people are aware that a bundle can be uninstalled at runtime, and if they still keep on holding to this Java reference, bad things can happen. So that was like the second problem I thought, and the third one is this one. If I have these are 3 bundles, we had this example from service usage. So if I start this bundle, I have a dependency to this bundle on top where the interface is, so it gets auto started if I have lazy activation. But since I don't have a direct reference to the bundle on the left with the service implementation, I have no way of telling it to get started. Yeah, not directly. There are mechanisms. I'm coming to that in a minute, but like pure, the implementation is hidden, so I don't have a direct reference who gets this started. So that's also, I think, a little problem. So here's a summary of that. Of the slides that service reference can become invalid. I have to check them. I have to check that the service is still there and the environment in which the service was created is still there. And services need to be started. And I cannot rely that a bundle is started is active. So I have to do something about it that bundles that have services are started. So this is a sample. I'm going to go through with certain implementations how to do that. I have a search service, a service that can search for data, and I have a search component that could be a RCP view or something that likes to use this service implementation. And so I'm going to show you how to do that in an API approach. In an API, what you do is you first ask the service registry, can you give me a service reference to that service? And then you get this service reference object. And this can be null because there's no service registered. And interesting enough, if you then get a service instance, a Java instance for that service reference, that still can be null. So you have to check both of them. And then you can do a find. And then you have this search object. And how long is that valid? It's not really clear how long that is valid. If the service goes down, you still hold on to this thing. So actually, if you hold on to this instance for a longer period of time, you have to check or recheck that this thing is it's still valid. It's still, live and doing something. There's a service tracker, but it's a different API, but it's sort of the same kind of problem that still down there, you're not sure how long this thing lives. There's also the declarative approach, which means you have this XML definition, and the thing gets injected. So here I define my search component wants to have the search service, and I define the method I want to have this service injected to, and then in my class I have these inject methods, which is set customer search and unset customer search. My instances get injected. Still, when I use them, I still have to check that this thing is still alive. So I think you're...
Not in this case, because that's what you made it as a mandatory dependency, you said dependency one-to-one. So those methods couldn't be called if the search reference is not away. So you don't have to null check, and in fact, you don't even need that unset method because you can just go and destroy it if the service goes away.
Oh, okay. You mean this component gets destroyed if the service goes away?
If the reference is if you start a thread, yeah. If you start threading, you do that from activate method, and you should clean it up from
Okay. Okay. Collateral damage that this component goes away. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. This slide is obviously wrong. I have another one, which is the E4 approach, which is having this annotation for injecting services, add inject. And for example, you could put this into your RCP view and then get a service injected. I think this is right. Still, the service can be null here. Yeah. Yeah, I think. Yeah, so I think the fact that bundles can go away in my mind, because it's there in the API that you can stop bundle, it adds a complexity, and we tend to then think, oh, we have to check that it's there or bad things happen. So if the search instance is null in this place because it was uninjected because the service went away, you get a null point exception. So if the services get stopped, you get null point exceptions if servers don't exist, or if the service was not started because it's in a bundle you don't have a dependency to, and you get weird errors at runtime. I also noticed that lazy activation, which is a bundle gets started because you load a class from that bundle, only works on the first time. If you ever stop that bundle, loading a class from that bundle doesn't start the bundle again. It only happens first time when you start the application. So the question to me here was, do I need this? Do I need the ability to stop bundles? Is that something I do a lot of times, that I stop bundles? Do I do this a lot, that I replace bundles with something new? Is that something I need, that services can come and go away? Yeah, maybe there are a number of use cases, but I also know a lot of applications who don't need this, who think this, this added complexity of the ability in the API to stop bundles and be so dynamic is something they don't need. I noticed in Eclipse that we used to have this button. If you install a new tool, you had this apply button. Yeah? You installed Findbugs plugin, or you installed the eGit provider, and you had a thing to say apply changes, which was basically I installed like 3 bundles, and then I could apply the changes, bring them up in the running instance, and that is something that never worked for me. I also get some kind of weird messages. Something was wrong in it. So I thought, okay, even if a world-class OSGi application like the Eclipse IDE, it fails. So I do a little demo. Yeah, you cannot read it. How is that? Okay, I'm gonna start a Eclipse IDE very quickly, and I'm gonna try something out, because I thought, if so, here's the eGit provider, which is something very new. So I thought, okay, so this is the Git repository on the left side. I thought, okay, how if I just uninstall, stop the bundle of the eGit UI? Shouldn't that be, if it watches all the life cycle of OSGi, then it should just, go away, the view on that. That is it, right? So here on the bottom. Wait a minute, you're going to see it very soon. So here is. Can you read it now? 125, that's the eGit UI bundle. So what I'm going to do is I'm sorry. I'm gonna stop it. I'm gonna say stop 125. Okay? So that will stop this one bundle. This UI bundle. Oh, okay. I see an exception down here. So here the this thing fails. So you get this null point exception. So I think my point here is that in the IDE, nobody actually looks at the life cycle and says, oh, my bundle stopped now. I have to clean up behind me, remove my view, and remove all the other bundles and stop properly. They get also these kind of null point exceptions. And if you think of the example of having a search dialog and it has this search service injected, what can you possibly do if you don't have the OSGi service? I think sometimes there's just nothing reasonable you can do if you're missing a dependent OSGi service or a missing extension. Yeah? You need them all in the same place. So even if you do a check, like you do a check, is search null or not? What would you do if it's null? Yeah, you made yourself redundant. Like, why is there a search dialog in the first place? Also, for embedded things, sometimes car providers, they don't use that because, if a car don't have a brake service, what would you do? Yeah. From Rihanna, I know that we have extensions built for Rihanna that allow us to force to start bundles. So we have an extension, and every bundle can specify it if you want, though. And then at the startup time, we don't do lazy activation, but we just force the bundle to start up, because this thing that bundles cannot run and run lazy activation, or if somebody needs it, is something we don't want. We want everything to start up. Also, OSGi servers, I think, they rather want the whole load of loading bundles at startup time, and they want to never to stop something. Okay. I think the advantage is really I can remove a lot of checks. I don't have to program for the situation where part of my application is missing or not started. So it gets easier. And I can check at startup time. Or I can make a long list of all the services that I need to successfully run my application. And I do this once and never again, because I have sort of a complete thing. And I don't need to do this in every component. I think there are exceptions to this rule. This is not a rule like 100% rule. Not everything is like black and white. There are things where you want dynamic services, where you want services to go away if you are offline. And you can do that and document that well and use it, and in this cases do these checks. But I think in 80% of the cases that I know of RCP applications, you don't need this kind of dynamic. And then you can do less checks. You can actually know that this is there. You can always be sure that a reference to a Java service, a Java reference to an OSGi service is always there. And you can even remove the checks, the null checks. Go ahead.
So are you putting in some framework code or something?
No, this is just regular OSGi code. This is.
But I mean this preventing forceful stop of the bundle, like what you did on the console.
Well, see, I talked to people and said, oh, what do you do about bundles being stopped? And they said, I don't do it. Somebody has to stop a bundle. Just have the mindset of, I would never think that it's a good idea to stop a bundle at runtime. I only stop them when I shut down my application. It's not really something like you prevent the runtime from doing it. It's just you don't get crazy about this dynamic idea of OSGi, and you just don't use this part of the OSGi API. You don't stop bundles. And once you have, so it's sort of a definition for your development environment or for your runtime environment, or for your product, to not use this part of OSGi. And I think you can always be sure that services are there. Recently, I was using Juice, so I can not really talk about Spring, but what surprises me is really that Juice is something that came after OSGi, is very new, and it doesn't have this dynamic. It's apparently possible to write applications and not have something that appears at runtime or can be uninstalled. And you can write a lot of meaningful applications with Juice. So, yeah. So here's like my list of OSGi features, like modules. I have this encapsulation, having bundles and public APIs, services, extensions, lazy activations, and my personal preference, why doesn't that work? Okay, so I'd be personally very careful with lazy activation. I would rather think you should activate or start bundles at start most of the times to be sure that they are running. You should be careful about stopping services, do it intentionally for some services, but not for too many. And you should be really careful or avoid exchanging bundles at runtime. It can go wrong, and I think the Eclipse IDE proves that they just abandoned it in 4.2. You can no longer apply changes. You can just restart the IDE. In previous releases, you could restart the IDE or apply changes. Now they just removed the option to apply the changes because it fails most of the time. So that's pretty much it. Critical questions?
Can you consider using decorative services with mandatory references? In that case, when mandatory reference disappears, the component that is declaring it will automatically be disposed. And when the mandatory service appears, the component will be built again and activated.
Yes.
So this will solve the no pointer issues, right?
Yes, yes. For declarative services, yes. With declarative services, I think it's meaningful if you have to have the OSGi services be declarative, and you have to have the component to be declarative. Yes. I think that makes most sense. If you have just one of them, because declarative services can bring up bundles where the service is even without you having a dependency.
Yes, I agree. You cannot mix
yeah.
APIs with
I guess it just moves the complexity, because then you have to make your UI component restartable again, because if it is kind of automatically deactivated and activated again if the service comes, what do we do?
Yeah, and I think it also only solves the problem for OSGi services. I think a lot of people are now aware that if a bundle is uninstalled, that extension goes away, so they don't listen. Yeah, there's an event for the extension registry for extensions that are uninstalled, but most of the people don't care. And so you have the problem if the bundle is uninstalled and replaced with a new version, you still hold on to this old Java reference to the extension that is no longer there.
Isn't the problem that the extension registry is not dynamic? Because what's actually happening is the extension registry has created that view, and the extension registry cannot bind into the lifecycle of that view to anything like the service. So imagine if the view was a DS component. The view itself could be bound to the service that it wants to use. You said, the car doesn't have brakes at the moment, so you don't use the car. So if the view needs that Git service that you disabled, well, the view shouldn't exist. Or alternatively, if you want to write a view that can exist beyond the life cycle of the thing that it's using, well, then it just has to cope with the fact that that would go away. So I think, I read an article a long time ago about the extension registry in Eclipse in comparison with OSGi services. And really, I think that the extension registry design was a mistake because they bound it to the resolved state of the bundles, not the active state, which is what most other extensions do.
But that's what's done, because then you could create an instance of that bundle and bring up the bundle. Because otherwise you couldn't find the extension.
The reason they did it was for laziness, but it was actually, I think it's the wrong way, because, with declarative services, you can activate the bundle for free as long as you don't have a bundle activator. So you still have a lazy loading effect, but you just activate all the bundles. Really, in OSGi, the intention of OSGi was that all bundles get started. That was really the intention of the designers of OSGi. And the reason you have this resolved status in the middle is because they couldn't find a way to do an atomic, going all the way from the source to the start. Have to get to the resolution waypoint before you get to things. So, but then you would have the ability to within all those bundles being in the active state, then the services would be coming and going and detecting that the thing that I'm bound to has gone away, so I need to go away. Or the thing that I'm bound to has gone away, but I can still continue to do my job, so you have to write it.
Yeah. See, I agree with all this. It's just like the application, the kind of application that I write, I don't need this. I just don't need to stop a bundle. I don't want the OSGi to remove that API. It's just that I think, and I want to make people aware that maybe you can just forget about this thing for your application. Don't get crazy about it because you don't know using it.
So that's why they took away the button in Eclipse, because a lot of Eclipse developers don't want to think about dynamics. And nobody's forcing any OSGi developer to do dynamics.
Yeah. One more.
Yeah, it's actually more of a comment because this is surely a very good thing for developers because it makes things much simpler. But from a user perspective, I absolutely do not understand. Especially since I know more about OSGi, I do absolutely not understand why I have to restart Eclipse when I update the bundle. I mean, I do it because that's the way it is. But actually, so if the Eclipse developers really care about their users, they should start thinking about this because there is no good, from a user perspective, there's no good reason for doing this.
I think it's very pragmatic. It's like we have the experience from the last 5 years that it's never worked. And actually, I tend in this apply changes button to always click on restart because apply changes never worked for me.
Yeah, but that's not a principle, not a problem.
No. They could have done it right, but they didn't. Yeah, they could have done it right, but they didn't.
Yeah.
I think
also, with the starting all bundles things in Eclipse, it eats huge amounts of memory. And
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I think we have to stop. Thanks very much for coming. Please vote.